Welcome to Brampton Focus. Well, it's a 2-year anniversary for those municipal politicians who were elected in 2014. For some first-timers, the first 12 months are tumultuous. You got to learn the job. And then you're sitting in the seat that you wanted, elected by the people who put you in, and you got to represent your constituents. Year 2 is always that much more of a challenge because then the hard work really starts. My name is Michael A. Charbon. We're going to meet Martin Medeiros, councillor for Wards 3 and 4, entering his 3rd year in politics, right here on Brampton Focus. Welcome back to Brampton Focus. When you talk about a newbie in politics, it's like that poor guy in the first time that he's elected. He sits down and kind of goes, he's quiet and just kind of watching politics to kind of get in the field. Well, this is not the section that you're sitting in when you're with our next guest, Martin Medeiros. He represents Ward 3 and 4 in Brampton. Yes, he was a newbie, but this is a guy who really stands up in council. He says what he thinks, and he thinks about what he says because he represents his folks. Now, I don't want to sound like a homer, but I mean, I've seen some of the things that you've said. I've seen your attendance in council. I've seen some of the things you've objected to, and I would say I'm with you on a lot of them. So Martin Medeiros, thank you so much for joining us in Brampton Focus here in 2017.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
So how did it feel? I mean, it's been your first completed year. Everything's all good. So
certainly, no, it's been an honor. It's really when it's you talk about some of the cookie cutter type of issues that you deal with when people talk about property standards and so on. And there is always that sort of satisfaction when you can give them the service that they're looking for with the resident. But more so, I think certainly when we came on, part of 2014 was really trying to bring some of that change and bring a little bit of that City Hall. Well, there was a little, I would say, a little dark gray cloud over it for several years of all the sort of fighting that was happening. All
that
the
hasn't ended.
Scandal, yeah.
That's a nice way to state it, and I appreciate your political correctness, but that has yet to cease, from what I understand.
Well, I will say, when people come to me and they talk about why council's not united or why isn't there, I think at the end of the day, you want spirited debate. You want people to represent views, and I have a hard problem voting for things just to get along with my colleague if I don't believe in it.
Well, I'm going to compliment you on that, as a matter of fact, because as a newly elected official, sometimes, and some would say that some councillors and members of a governmental organization are a little shy to rock the boat because they don't want to they want to tread softly until they figure. You walked in there guns a-blazing. I mean, you basically stood up on numerous times and said, I don't think this is right. I don't think this should be done. And to some of the more senior councillors who have been there too long, some would say, you really stood up and say, listen, there's got to be a change. What kind of a reaction have you gotten from your constituents? Because you rocked the boat.
Well, I certainly, some constituents, I found it was interesting. They'll come to me and they'll say, thank you for standing up for us. There's been sort of issues in my ward that, that's rallied the residents together, and, that's always good. But there's also people who maybe disagree with some of my views. At the end of the day, I try to make, always based on, sound information and principle votes. So basically, I believe in what I vote for. So, and it's nothing personal against older councillors or any other councillors, but when I see things that I find not correct, or when I think that ultimately what always has to be in mind is, what's the best for the city, what's the best for our residents, and what's the best for...
So some would say that municipal politics are a little more dangerous than provincial and federal politics, because in federal politics and provincial politics, there was a party line that one can follow. In municipal politics, there's a lot more behind the scenes thing. You know what? I need to put this in my ward, and you want to put that in your ward, so I'll vote for your thing if you vote for my thing, and we should both get together and not vote for the thing that the mayor wants, or we should. There's a lot of horse trading that goes on.
Sure.
Now, you being a newbie, or not anymore, I mean, you're an established guy now, and I mean that with all respect.
Yeah,
there are some councillors who've been there for a little while, and you're not kowtowing down to what they want because they're trying to muscle. How does that work for the horse trading thing when...
Yeah, since I've been on council, I don't, I'm not someone that people will go to bargain a vote. I don't.
Bargain of vote.
I don't, the way I vote is really principle based on, again, what I think is the best decision for the city. A lot of times it seems to be there's been a little bit of a rift at city where you get 3 or 4 on one side and 6 on the other side. And sometimes that could be just based on ideology. That could be based on what people find correct. But
Yeah.
be it at the city or be at the region, I've never sort of given a vote away. If I don't believe in what I stand for, and if I don't believe in that's the correct decision, the best decision, then
Is that because you're still young in politics? You're still out.
I think it's a little bit.
Someone saying, "Oh, he's a fool. He thinks that that's for real."
Yeah.
That's why they voted you, isn't it?
Well, certainly it's the art of compromise. They say politics is, and there are moments where you have to look at what's the greater good, and are there opportunities, and the same thing with some of the comments or me being more outspoken in council. There are moments where I just feel that it's not going to be helpful for me to be outspoken just for the sake of being outspoken. But there are moments where if I really believe in the issue and I really believe that that I'm passionate about it, and then it comes out, and that's maybe where I guess my Portuguese background comes out a little bit, and some of that emotional side comes.
It's part of your mother or your grandmother in you, I'll tell you. Strong-willed people. So I got to bring up a little bit of the hard facts here because we want to talk about some facts and figures. The McCarter report came out. They paid this gentleman $50,000, and I don't think that's an outlandish fee for what he supplied, but he talked about $1.2 billion in infrastructure. There's a gap, depleted reserves. So the Bank of the City of Brampton may not have enough money in case something comes up for a 2-for-1 offer, where the province would come up with 2 parts of whatever the final package is, and Brampton being one. $141 million in debt carried forward, growing the strains on the payroll. McCarter said that the 6 figures in 2014, Brampton employee earnings of 6 figures grew by 36%. And unfortunately, at a time when the mayor said she was going to reduce her fee by $50,000 per year, councillors elected themselves a 7% raise. That's not a very good report. If you're a taxpayer in Brampton, and you see over the last 3 years it's gone up 13%, how do you answer that when that's put forth to you?
No, I agree. There's not really, in my opinion, there's no justification based on what happened with the salaries. I voted against the increase. I think that we should have just froze our salaries, because essentially what it was is we took off the 1/3 tax portion, and that brought our salary down. So I guess part of the compromise was to try to compensate our loss in earnings by increasing that salary base. I just thought that wasn't the right thing to do. I thought that we should have took the 1/3 tax-free off, because we already have other benefits at the city, and at the same time we should have took the pay cut and just allow for next council, because essentially what we've done, we didn't go to the electorate to do. And I think, in terms of the name of transparency, and especially with trying to instill confidence into the city of Brampton, and what I said publicly was the fact that, this was not the time to raise salaries, understanding that we did take a cut, because this is not what we told them before the election. So it's not fair to, right after we get in, we make these type of decisions, and we have to be very transparent with the residents, and especially with the type of work and the type of news that Brampton Focus does and other organizations and so on. Information is there. Residents know.
Well, interesting when you talk about information. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of these budgetary allotments, these line items that for some have been shocking. For others, councillors, I guess it's normal. You're watching Brampton Focus. My name is Michael A. Charbon. We're here with Martin Medeiros. He is the guy who represents Ward 3 and 4 in the city of Brampton. Michael Charbon here. Come back, Brampton Focus. Lots more right after this. Welcome back to Brampton Focus. Ward 3 and 4 is represented by Martin Medeiros, and here we are in year 2 of his occupation, as one would say, of the seat representing this ward, Ward 3 and 4 in the city of Brampton. When you say responsibility of vote, there are recorded votes, and you can go online and you can view that. You can also attend council and hear the goings on. So it would be very interesting, and I don't want to do this right now because I think we have to make it an appropriate and fair way. So I'm not going to throw this out to throw anybody under the bus, but I'm telling you, the bus is warming up. It's got snow tires, and there's going to be some problems, because when I look at this, Martin, so they released the budget online.
Yep.
Mysteriously, there was 100 pages that were missing on the budget. In 27, imagine that. Imagine that. In a city, the 9th largest city in Canada, there was 100 pages missing. And it was only about, what, $1.2 million worth of expenditures that weren't listed on the budget?
Sure.
Are you kidding me, dude? $232,000 embarked for corporate campus artwork in the new West Tower. $650,000 for the 5th floor City Hall. $600,000 for retrofit of the 6th floor. That's $1.2 million alone for furniture and floor maintenance. Hello, $116,000 for artwork, and 3 big screen TVs. What is this, 4K with a live elf inside? $100,000 for new wayfinding signages? You got to be kidding. And this is a beauty right here. $200,000 for a gym of some sort, a fitness center. When everybody at the City Hall, and there's, from what I understand, there's a Y within walking distance.
Yes.
So you look at all this money, and we're talking about a city that says they're carrying $141 million in debt. And you've got to go and face your constituents in Ward 3 and 4. What the heck do they say when they see this? And what did you do about this?
Well, certainly, yeah, no, that's fine. No, that's great. But no, I agree with, I guess, the sentiment in terms of the outrage. I used to, my litmus test sometimes are my parents who, are my residents as well. And when I see them and I see some of the seniors at Shoppers World, and, the reaction is the same reaction I get. And that's what, when it came to some of these budget items, I was kind of dumbfounded. Notwithstanding, I understand staff, they make their proposals. I think some of these proposals weren't probably the best proposals at a time when, we're making some big decisions at the City of Brampton, especially with the recent job loss and especially with the restructuring that's happening. I just didn't think to send a good message where, we're finding savings on one end, and then after we're trying to spend on some areas which I don't see the necessity. So, for example, the staff gym. So it was my motion to try to delete it from the budget. So I put it forth. It lost by 1 vote, and then
$200,000.
$200,000, and
that's a lot of gym memberships.
And we
could send you there by Uber back and forth. Oh, sorry, you're not allowed to use Uber in
and I'm respectful. Like, I'm a former civil servant myself with the province, so I respect about creating good, healthy work environments. I don't. We have a room to put bikes. We have showers. We have this opportunity that staff do have some form of recreational offering. Second, we have subsidies. We subsidize corporate memberships. I'm a member at the YMCA, lifetime membership, and I go from City Hall, walk over to YMCA, and I see a lot of staff there.
Yes.
So
why do you need to spend $200,000 on a gym?
That's my.
Somebody wants a locker.
And what reminds me of the gym is, if you go to some of those condominium buildings, you see this abandoned gym because it doesn't have the full equipment that people are looking for. So at the end of the day, what use are you going to get out of it?
It becomes an elephant.
And I'm concerned too.
But these are not cast in stone. Now these have been deferred. These decisions, right?
Well, that was my disappointment, because I had, along with my colleagues such as Councillor Dillon and Councillor Fortini, we wanted these items to be deleted. So,
but they've been deferred.
They've been deferred.
So at least it wasn't passed an ultimatum and so you can't do anything about it. So with it being deferred, when these items are to be revisited, does that still allow the constituents in Brampton to say, hey, whoa, wait a second. Okay, so maybe you feel that there should be some artwork. Granted, as long as it's a Brampton person who does the artwork, and it has to be a Canadian, and you have to look at that. There's so many art groups in Brampton. Is there a way to funnel that through so it's not, you know what I'm saying?
Well, that's what we're looking at. So staff is actually going to go see what we have and what local Brampton artists we can get, because there's always artists who are looking for opportunities to, expose their work. And so if we can get that sort of connection, it's just to have that expense at this time.
So we're going to be voting on these again? Martin,
yes,
can I have you?
Yes, we will be voting.
And when you do, I'm going to tell you right now, as far as Brampton Focus is concerned, we want to be able to look at that recorded vote, because there are certain councillors that have consistently, from what we have gotten from some of our Intel, that are voting for this stuff. And people are saying, you know what, we want jobs, we want transit. I mean, we look at Brampton Beast, there's a bunch of things that have gone on. And I'll ask you about the Brampton. What's your position on the Brampton Beast?
Well, I was very vocal against the deal. Nothing against Brampton Beast per se. No. It's just that, for example, it's just at a time where we're raising property taxes, and at a time where groups are coming in, and we say that we have no money that we can't give to community groups, that we're helping a professional organization. You know, I tried reopening it during the budget process. So
the only problem with that is the Powerade Center. If you don't have a client, there's nobody there. So there is the alternative that they say, well, the Brampton Beast is a good business, but it's an independent business. I mean, we start going about picking winners and losers, and that's not what the government does. But this is a unique situation that the Powerade Center needs to be in Brampton and functional. And the only way that you can keep it open and functional is you need a tenant.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if you're paying for the tenant to, it's kind of like it's back asswards almost.
It's exactly, and it just reflects also the deal, how bad that deal Powerade Center is. You know, that's another conversation because we're sort of, you know, tied up in that deal to 2034. So
I have about a minute left, and because the third segment I want to talk about the positives. Tolls. I had Andrea Horvath in here, and she's siding, very unusual, with Patrick Brown, saying they don't want to support tolls. John Tory says he wants tolls. I call it $2 to TO one way, $4 a day, $900 a year. Kathleen Wynne needs the money. They're selling hydro and everything else. She wants it. Mayor Jeffrey says she's not really into a toll. What is your position for a toll potentially on the 410 going north into Brampton?
Yeah, I would be against tolls, and I just think that we're already heavily taxed. I'm against tolls per se, but I do recognize that one of the issues that municipalities face is the revenue stream. Where do we get
funding tools?
Funding tools, and I guess the City of Toronto feels that this is a viable option for I guess the cost of their infrastructure. But you know, if you look at the municipality, City of Toronto compared with the other municipalities, we've made hard decisions by raising property taxes. City of Toronto hasn't. So their property tax base on basically what they're paying in terms of is not in line with the rest of the GTA communities. So Mississauga, Brampton, we have a higher property tax in the City of Toronto. You know, what does that reflect? That reflects that certainly we've made difficult decisions, you know, and City of Toronto, they have another revenue stream because they have the Toronto City Act. So they have the land transfer tax and so on. I guess their alternative, instead of looking at property taxes, is to look at those other alternatives.
Right.
So I'm not sure if, you know, I'm against tolls.
Well, I'm going to count your vote as saying no to tolls to come into Brampton, so that's good. We're talking to Martin Medeiros. He represents wards 3 and 4 in the city of Brampton. When we come back for our final segment, let's talk a little bit of positiveness. We've got a university, we've got a hospital. And in 2017, there's lots of positive things to come. We had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Moore, Mr. Evan Moore, who was the chairman, the brand new chair of the Brampton Board of Trade. And Martin Medeiros is going to speak to us, and we're going to talk about the good things to happen in Brampton in 2017. You're watching Brampton Focus. My name is Michael A. Charbon. We'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back to Brampton Focus. We're sitting down talking with Martin Medeiros, who is from wards 3 and 4 in the city of Brampton. Our final segment, Martin. Let's be a little bit positive here. We talked about budget. We talked about your second year now sitting in the seat for 3 and 4. We talked about some of the things you stood up for and you disagreed with. And I want to transcend to the good stuff. A Blue Ribbon Committee has said and announced that there will be a university in Brampton. That's fulfilling a dream that has been on the table now for probably about 10 years, if not more. What is your read on this? We understand they want to make it in an urban setting, not a rural setting. Yep. And if they put it in the downtown core somewhere, somehow, it's going to help the city of Brampton and reinvigorate the core. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, no, certainly I think exactly. I was, first of all, it was an honor to be part of the Blue Ribbon panel. You know, the Blue Ribbon panel, which was led by
there you are. That's there's William Davis, the Honourable William Davis in the center, Madam Jeffrey on the right there.
And it was an honor to work with such talented group of individuals. And but I will say that this is one of the things that you recognize Madam Mayor in her former post as a cabinet minister and her ability to I guess work the system and work with her former colleagues. And I know she was pressuring the Premier a lot. I myself attend a lot of events, and I would run into a lot of the provincial ministers, and I do have a relationship with a couple of the ministers, and I can tell you top of mind was always when we were getting the university. So
Martin, you're the inside track here. How far are we ahead on this proposal? Obviously you can't give us a heads up of who our partner is. We're hoping for UFT. Madam Mayor, Linda Jeffrey says it could be someone even better, and I know you're as tight-lipped as the rest.
Sure,
but how close are we now to really pulling the trigger on this puppy?
Well, one of the difficulties we have, and I think staff, right now it's being led by staff at the city, and it's real more of a technical exercise because we're waiting for the call for proposals. Once that comes out, the call for proposals, really it's the university who does the application. Right. And it's almost like a dating. You get universities who will provide what their offerings are, and we as a city look at what would be the best match for us. So certainly right now we're in standby, but we have full confidence in the staff at the city who are leading this process, and we hope that there'll be what I hear is sometime in spring of 2017. Okay. And then I look forward to a successful application from City of Brampton.
So a hospital is now also announced. Big news. So we have Osler Health, and we're going to have now finally another critical care day operations. But that's a big thing, and that's an economic development process too. I mean, we also look forward to Bob Darling, who now is taking over the position from Dennis Cuttajar for economic development. So the hospital is going to be a big plus for the city of Brampton.
Certainly, notwithstanding from a healthcare perspective, but we're really looking at the hospital as also an economic opportunity. The whole, really, when we talk about anchoring our economic development plan around health and life sciences, this really aligns well. So we expect also that whole corridor of Queen Street to be developed, and that's really going to be a cornerstone of our economic plan. The hospital with the university. So there's really some bright announcements, some really great opportunities from an economic perspective, and now it's really up to us to take advantage. And but I could tell you that from companies or from organizations that have already manifested and showed interest into sort of setting up shop in Brampton. There's been some really interesting conversations and groups who want to invest in Brampton, and you can already start seeing, and there's that role of excitement, the fact that we can really sort of develop and build our commercial base. Because one of the issues that we had from a property tax perspective is, our ratio, what we're paying property tax is highly dependent on residential. And I've been fighting the fact that this is why our economic development has to be, it's crucial to the city of Brampton, because we want to get to the ratios that's similar as the city of Mississauga, where you have a higher percentage of commercial, basically business paying taxes. That's right. So that's what we need to get, and that's why this is critical, notwithstanding its economic development, but the fact that we can even try to lessen the burden on the taxpayer.
Brampton Focus had Evan Moore in here. He's the new chairman of the Brampton Board of Trade, and one of the interesting points that he made, which really struck me, was the youth and highly technical capability of the youth that live in Brampton, and the skill set that they have is something that's really interesting and attractive for new businesses to come here. Sure. And I think that was very well positioned. And Evan Moore, I mean, is a young gentleman, 35 years old. He's a lawyer, so I think he's got good vision. But speaking of vision, for you, Martin, what do you see? I mean, 2017, it's a year before election, and I hate to say election because that's 2018, but the first day that you're in council is the first day that you're working to get reelected.
I'm told that.
It's true, because the first day you're born is the first day that you're closer to dying, so it's that same thing. So 2017 is a pretty crucial year. You really got to put up or shut up. What do you see? And I don't mean that personally.
Yeah, no.
What do you see in 2017 of the positive vision and things to come?
Well, certainly, I think we just have to maintain the course. I know it doesn't sound sexy sometimes when you talk about, financial discipline, stability. We're getting our finances in order. Mm-hmm. We have a 3-year rolling budget. We make some difficult decisions. We want to ensure that we're getting value for money and that the taxpayer is not burdened. So that has to continue. That doesn't sometimes sell well because people want the shiny new buildings. They want those shiny investments. Certainly coupled with the university, in wards 3 and 4. what we're lacking and what I'm really pushing is more investment in recreational offerings, because we've had a lot of development, especially going towards west, towards Mississauga Road, and there's really no recreational offering. So certainly, you know, part of our master plan that we just finished, the Parks and Rec master plan, I'm hoping that we get more amenities in my community in wards 3 and 4 that allow for people to look for that quality of life that the city of Brampton should be offering, and you know, part of that are those type of key investments.
I mean, the last one, if I remember, was the Cassie Campbell, when I was fortunate enough to host that press conference for the inaugural opening of the Cassie Campbell Recreation Center. That would be something nice to see in wards 3 and 4.
It would be
but
fantastic.
You got to get some votes for that, Martin. You can't sit there and...
It would be fantastic, but also I think right now a lot of the trend seems to be community hubs, those small little hubs in the small communities where people can walk towards, that has some meeting space, you know, and especially the demographics changes in wards 3 and 4. You know, we have to look at the diversity and what they're requiring in the park. So for example, shade shelters has been something that's been crazy in our city. So
Martin Medeiros, thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate you standing up and saying what you believe in council. You are a voice of sometimes reason, some would say non-reason, but we appreciate you, first of all, coming on to Brampton Focus and being true to your beliefs. Martin Medeiros, the gentleman who represents Ward 3 and 4 in the city of Brampton. You're watching Brampton Focus. My name is Michael A. Charbon. Please visit us at bramptonfocus.ca. We appreciate your questions and comments. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.